Recently, the channel received a request from a viewer wanting to recount Lana's allegations about a sicko considered to be a cinematic legend. This comment dug up one of the darkest secrets in Hollywood. It all started when a teenage actress walked into a hotel room looking for an opportunity for an upcoming role, but came back out completely disheveled and panicked. The person who pushed her into that hell was a force so powerful that no one dared to fight back. But what is the most cruel tragedy of it all? The one who forced the young girl to cover up that crime was her own biological mother. What secret was hidden for so many years? The summer of 1955 set the stage for one of the most tragic betrayals in entertainment history. Laying the cards on the table, the exact people involved must be named to confront the reality of the situation. The young girl walking into that trap was Natalie Wood. At the time, this rising star was just a young teenager. Filming the classic Western The Searchers was supposed to be her major breakout moment. Instead, the production schedule collided with a real-life nightmare. The man waiting inside the suite was Kirk Douglas. In his late 30s, the actor was an absolute titan of the golden age. Operating at the peak of his fame, this leading man wielded the kind of untouchable influence that modern audiences can barely comprehend. Back in the 1950s, the studio system ran on a rigid dictatorship model. Executives and male stars held total authority over who succeeded and who starved. Actors did not have social platforms to complain about poor treatment. Human resources departments did not exist on movie sets. If a major producer decided your career was over, you were permanently erased from the industry. Contracts dictated what you wore, who you dated, and exactly how you behaved. This monopoly on power created a vast environment for predatory behavior. The ultimate open secret of classic Hollywood requires direct confrontation. The casting couch was not some vague rumor or a harmless industry myth. It was an established, brutal reality. Young, desperate actresses were routinely expected to trade highly inappropriate personal favors for screen tests and movie contracts. Powerful men treated the physical boundaries of young women as disposable. Refusing these unspoken demands often meant being sent straight back home. Accepting them meant entering a disturbing system where personal boundaries could be traded for a chance at stardom. If a young performer rejected the pressure, her contract could disappear overnight. The actor waiting at the Chateau Marmont was known for taking advantage of that exact system. Industry insiders were aware of his repeated pursuit of young women. His reputation for crossing professional boundaries was widely discussed among the Hollywood elite. Stories about his inappropriate behavior around female co-stars were common on set. Yet the mainstream press protected his rugged masculine hero image. Magazines presented him as a charismatic charmer, hiding the darker reality of an adult star using power and status against a much younger woman. Publicists worked overtime to ensure his wholesome persona remained intact. This brings us to the most disturbing element of this historical tragedy. A naive teenager did not just stumble into a dangerous situation by accident. Maria Zakharenko, the young star's own biological mother, orchestrated the entire meeting. Stage mothers in that era were notoriously ruthless, but Maria operated on an entirely different level of ambition. Seeking financial security, this parent viewed her daughter as the ultimate financial asset. Maria understood exactly how the studio system operated. The matriarch knew the dark, transactional nature of the business was the fastest elevator to the top, using her own child as a bargaining tool. This stage mother ran her household with strict authority. The parent constantly drilled into her daughter's head that the family's survival depended entirely on the teenager's acting success. Placing the financial burden of a household onto a young girl creates a paralyzing fear of failure. The young actress believed that if she did not secure better roles, her family would face absolute poverty. Maria weaponized this fear every single day. The mother convinced the teenager that impressing older, powerful men was a mandatory professional duty. Securing a private meeting with a titan like Douglas was considered a major victory. Packing her teenage daughter into the family car, the ambitious mother drove directly to the Chateau Marmont. Built like a European castle overlooking the Sunset Strip, the property was infamous for its absolute discretion. The management never asked questions. The staff was paid to look the other way at all times. This created a perfectly insulated environment where powerful studio executives could engage in illicit behavior far away from the cameras. Pulling up to that address under the cover of darkness was never about discussing a movie script. It was a calculated delivery. When a mother drives her child to this location, it removes any illusion of innocence. The intense psychological betrayal happening in the front seat of that vehicle was profound. A mother should be the ultimate shield against the world. Parents are biologically wired to keep bad people away from their children. Yet Maria actively drove her young daughter right into direct danger. The matriarch fully knew the leading man's aggressive reputation. The parent understood the extreme age gap. A man approaching 40 having a private late-night meeting with a young teen was a glaring red flag. The mother simply ignored the danger because the potential career boost was too valuable. The sickening power imbalance happening in that exact moment is undeniable. On one side, you have a wealthy, physically imposing Hollywood icon. On the other side, you have a high school teenager. A girl of that age is still developing physically and emotionally. The man waiting in the suite was a fully grown adult male, celebrated for his muscular on-screen persona. The physical intimidation alone is terrifying. His dominance and immense industry wealth created an inescapable trap. Teenagers lack the life experience to navigate complex manipulation. Furthermore, this teenager was being pressured by the most important authority figure in her life. When your mother tells you to make the powerful man happy, what choice do you have? Maria parked outside the hotel, looked at her teenage child, and sent her walking toward the suite. The young actress walked into the building carrying the crushing weight of her family's financial expectations. The trap was set, the door closed, and the system worked exactly as designed. While the horrific events unfolded inside the luxury hotel suite, a different kind of psychological tension was building down in the parking lot. The heavy silence inside the family vehicle was suffocating. Sitting in the passenger seat was little Lana, who was merely 8 years old at the time. The young child sat in the dark, entirely unaware of the nightmare her older sister was currently enduring just a few floors above them. Next to the child sat Maria, gripping the steering wheel and staring out at the iconic architecture of the Chateau Marmont. The Los Angeles summer heat trapped inside the metal box made the waiting process feel like an absolute eternity. Minutes stretched into hours. The matriarch was not waiting with maternal anxiety. She was waiting with cold, calculating anticipation, genuinely believing this secret meeting would secure their financial future. The stark contrast between the glamorous, glittering facade of the Hollywood establishment outside the windshield and the grim, transactional reality occurring upstairs is deeply unsettling. Suddenly, the heavy car door was violently pulled open, shattering the quiet atmosphere. The figure collapsing into the back seat was unrecognizable from the hopeful, ambitious teenager who had walked away earlier that night. The visual shock of her return was immediate and undeniable. The young actress was a physical wreck. Her carefully chosen clothing was noticeably torn and disheveled, pointing to a frantic, physical struggle that had just taken place. The meticulous Hollywood hair and makeup were ruined, replaced by a chaotic, tear-stained mess. The teenager was sobbing uncontrollably, gasping for air in a state of pure panic. However, the most glaring, horrifying detail was the physical evidence left directly on her body. The young girl bore distinct, dark, bruised wrists. Bruises forming on the wrists tell a precise, terrifying story. Those marks are the undeniable physical proof of being forcefully pinned down, of aggressive restraint, and of a desperate but ultimately failed attempt to physically fight off a much stronger attacker. The immediate aftermath inside the cramped vehicle was not filled with comforting words or maternal outrage. Instead, it was filled with a frantic cover-up. The traumatized teenager and the mother instantly switched their communication to fluent Russian. Doing this was a calculated move designed to isolate the 8-year-old child sitting right next to them. The mother deliberately built a language barrier because she did not want the younger sister to process the gruesome details of the attack. The rapid, desperate whispering in a foreign tongue created a thick, impenetrable wall of secrecy. Little Lana was forced to sit in the dark, watching her older sister break down entirely, hearing the terrifying, panicked tones of a language she could not fully grasp. Even at 8 years old, the child understood the undeniable atmosphere of absolute terror radiating through the car. The vehicle had transformed from a waiting room into a site of severe trauma. This moment in the parking lot is where the story shifts from a tragic physical violation into a profound, unforgivable, familial betrayal. A normal parent would look at their child returning with ripped clothes and bruised wrists and immediately drive the car straight to the nearest police precinct. A protective mother would hunt down the perpetrator and demand absolute justice. Maria did the exact opposite. The ambitious stage mother looked at her shattered daughter and issued a chilling, stone-cold directive. Rather than offering a shoulder to cry on, the matriarch looked directly at the traumatized teenager and commanded her to simply suck it up. Breaking down the heavy weight of that phrase reveals the true darkness of the Hollywood machine. The phrase "suck it up" is typically reserved for minor, everyday inconveniences, like dealing with a scraped knee or facing a difficult exam. Using those exact words as a response to a severe, violent physical violation is an act of supreme psychological cruelty. The mother was explicitly telling the teenager that her physical safety, her bodily autonomy, and her mental sanity were secondary to the family's financial goals. The severe trauma was instantly diminished and treated as nothing more than a minor, unfortunate workplace hazard. The matriarch prioritized the potential movie contracts and the allure of stardom over the fundamental well-being of her own flesh and blood. Following that cruel command, the mother enforced an absolute, unbreakable ban on seeking any form of justice. There would be no police report filed that night. There would be no medical examination conducted at a hospital. There would be absolutely no complaints brought to the attention of the powerful studio executives. The mother instilled a deep, paralyzing fear into the young victim's mind. The logic presented was twisted but effective. If the teenager dared to speak up, the powerful actor would easily destroy her. The massive celebrity would completely ruin her rising career. He would financially ruin their family, and the ruthless industry would instantly blacklist her. The prevailing belief was that nobody would ever believe a teenager over a multi-million-dollar box office draw. The toxic silence was permanently cemented right there in the dark parking lot, locking the victim in a psychological prison constructed by her own mother. The ugly truth of that summer night remained heavily guarded, but the trauma festered deep beneath the surface for years. Decades later, when the two sisters were finally alone and mature enough to confront the ghosts of their family's past, the horrific details were finally spoken aloud. The older sister looked at Lana and explicitly confirmed the nightmare that occurred inside the Chateau Marmont. The victim bravely stated that the powerful man had hurt her. The legendary actor had done a terrible thing. The older sister described the harrowing attack not just as a brutal physical event, but as a complete psychological fracture that haunted her every single day. The victim described having an out-of-body experience during the assault. Examining what that psychological term actually means exposes the profound severity of the attack. When a human being faces a threat so immense, so overwhelming, and so physically inescapable, the brain often triggers an emergency panic switch. The mind literally detaches from the physical body as a desperate survival mechanism to endure the unbearable reality of the violation. The young actress was not just scared in that hotel room, she was disassociated from reality. The victim recalled feeling profoundly terrified and intensely confused. The deep confusion stemmed from the ultimate double-sided betrayal. The grown man attacking her was a respected industry legend, and the person who willingly delivered her to his door was her own trusted mother. Navigating that level of cognitive dissonance is enough to permanently shatter a person's mental foundation. The heavy burden of this dark reality was eventually transferred from the victim directly onto the younger sister. Lana was forced to carry this agonizing, explosive secret for decades. The entire entertainment world continuously celebrated the powerful actor, showering him with prestigious Lifetime Achievement Awards, praising his extensive philanthropy, and cementing his legacy as a flawless Hollywood hero. The public built vast tributes to his masculinity. All the while, the younger sister watched the sickening hypocrisy unfold on television screens and red carpets. The sibling was tightly bound by the toxic vow of silence, originally demanded by their ambitious mother. The weight of knowing the truth while the world worshipped the abuser is a unique kind of psychological torture. It took an incredible 66 years for the truth to finally break free from the shadows. In the year 2021, Lana published her revealing memoir titled Little Sister. The explosive book completely shattered the decades of enforced generational silence. Releasing this information to the public was not merely a scandalous celebrity tell-all designed to sell copies. The publication served as a desperate, final act of justice for a young teenager who was brutally silenced in a dark parking lot. The memoir permanently stained the pristine legacy of a cinematic giant, proving that the sparkling era of classic cinema was built on a foundation of profound exploitation. The book finally gave a voice to the terrified girl with the bruised wrists, exposing the devastating reality that the price of fame was often paid with a victim's soul. The glamorous facade of classic Hollywood often masked the severe psychological deterioration happening right behind the camera. While the public watched a young prodigy transform into a highly bankable superstar, the internal reality was a rapid, terrifying spiral. The actress delivered career-defining performances in hit films like Rebel Without a Cause, eventually securing 3 separate Academy Award nominations. Audiences worshipped her undeniable talent and stunning physical beauty. The industry officially crowned her as a definitive leading lady of her generation. Yet, holding golden trophies and attending lavish movie premieres cannot magically erase deep-seated, untreated psychological trauma. Professional success simply provided a shiny veneer over a fractured mental foundation. The young star was rapidly disintegrating under the immense pressure of an industry that demanded absolute perfection and a family dynamic built entirely on ruthless manipulation. The root of this psychological ruin traced directly back to a childhood defined by extreme maternal cruelty. Maria did not just push her daughter into acting. The matriarch actively inflicted emotional and physical pain to generate on-screen performances. Directors needed the child actress to cry on command for a specific emotional scene. The mother deliberately caught a live butterfly, brought the fragile creature over to her daughter, and viciously tore its wings off right in front of the child's face. The hysterical, traumatized tears captured on film were real, manufactured by a parent willing to use pure sadism as a directing tool. This dark pattern of reckless endangerment continued relentlessly throughout her youth. During a film shoot, a stage bridge collapsed, causing the young girl to fall and shatter her left wrist. Instead of demanding immediate medical attention at a proper hospital, the mother covered up the severe injury just to avoid delaying the lucrative production schedule. The untreated fracture healed improperly, leaving the star with a permanent, visible bone deformity. The actress spent the rest of her life desperately hiding this physical flaw under large bracelets and carefully tailored wardrobe choices. Furthermore, the matriarch planted a deep, paralyzing psychological seed inside her daughter's developing mind. The mother utilized a superstitious fortune teller's dark prediction to constantly warn the young girl about the deadly, looming dangers of dark water. This relentless fear-mongering created an intense, lifelong clinical phobia of the ocean. Carrying this heavy burden of untreated childhood trauma, the actress desperately searched for any form of validation and emotional stability. Lacking a healthy familial support system, the star sought comfort in a series of profoundly unequal and complex attachments. The deep isolation she experienced within her own family drew her directly toward seasoned industry figures who easily recognized her extreme vulnerability. The fragile newcomer found herself entangled with Nicholas Ray, a powerful film director decades her senior. This immense disparity in power and experience highlights a continuing dangerous pattern of seeking approval and protection from authoritative industry figures. Other high-profile dynamics, including a heavily publicized connection with the famous actor Steve McQueen, failed to provide the psychological anchor she required. The constant emotional turbulence inevitably drove the star towards severe chemical dependency. The punishing schedules of studio productions often normalized heavy drug use among leading actors. The actress developed a severe reliance on prescription medications just to function on a basic daily level. The psychological spiral involved a dangerous, daily cocktail of highly addictive substances. The star consumed heavy doses of Seconal, a powerful barbiturate used to force her exhausted body to sleep. The next morning, she required high dosages of dexedrine, a potent amphetamine needed to wake up and perform dialogue on set. This brutal, endless cycle of chemical uppers and downers destroyed her central nervous system. The profound clinical depression and escalating substance dependency eventually pushed the legendary actress to an absolute breaking point, resulting in two separate, tragic attempts on her own life. The glamorous movie star was privately fighting a losing battle against psychological collapse while the cameras continued to roll. The darkest chapter of this tragic psychological profile culminated in November of 1981. The actress, now 43 years old, boarded a luxury yacht named the Splendor for a weekend trip off the coast of Catalina Island. The vessel carried her husband, Robert Wagner, alongside her current film co-star, Christopher Walken, and the boat's hired captain, Dennis Davern. The official public narrative stated that the actress simply slipped and fell into the freezing ocean while attempting to secure a loose dinghy in the middle of the night. The county coroner initially ruled the incident a tragic accidental drowning. The local authorities essentially rubber-stamped the husband's initial story without conducting a thorough modern crime scene investigation. Police detectives quickly closed the official case, allowing the grieving widower to control the media narrative. The entertainment industry publicly mourned the sudden loss of a cinema legend, and the dark, unsettling details of that weekend were quietly buried deep underwater. However, the official accident theory unravels when subjected to basic psychological profiling and modern forensic analysis. You have to look directly at the deeply ingrained phobia planted by her mother decades earlier. The actress possessed a documented paralyzing terror of dark water. The idea that a woman suffering from this severe clinical phobia would willingly step out onto the slippery ledge of a moving yacht in pitch-black darkness over freezing ocean water just to tie up a small boat is illogical. The physical actions simply do not align with the established psychological profile of the victim. Decades later, the heavy wall of silence surrounding the luxury yacht finally cracked wide open. In 2018, Captain Davern provided explosive new testimony that shattered the original police report. The captain confirmed that a violent altercation erupted inside the yacht's main cabin shortly before the star mysteriously vanished. The captain detailed a fierce, jealous rage consuming Robert Wagner. The husband allegedly smashed a heavy wine bottle during a furious, screaming argument regarding the actress's working relationship with her co-star. The atmosphere on the boat was described as intensely hostile and incredibly dangerous. Based on this new, crucial forensic timeline, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department officially reopened the decades-old investigation. Authorities analyzed the original autopsy photos, noting unexplained bruising on the victim's arms and a fresh abrasion on her cheek. Injuries that strongly suggested a physical struggle occurred before she ever entered the water. The police took a monumental step, formally changing the legal status of the legendary Hollywood husband. Authorities officially named Robert Wagner a person of interest in the mysterious death of his own wife. The carefully constructed illusion of a simple, tragic boating accident was stripped away. The new evidence left behind a chilling, unresolved mystery involving a terrified woman, a violent alcohol-fueled argument, and the dark, deadly water she had desperately feared her entire life. Fame, wealth, and golden statues offered absolutely no protection against the tragic demons that hunted her from childhood until her final, terrifying breath. While the young actress suffered through a terrifying cycle of trauma and ultimately met a tragic end, the man responsible for that initial hotel room nightmare experienced a completely different reality. The stark contrast between their two lives exposes the sickening hypocrisy of the entertainment industry. The powerful actor never faced a single consequence for his actions. There were no police reports filed against him during his entire lifetime. Law enforcement never knocked on his door. Studio bosses never suspended his lucrative contracts. Instead of being cast out of the business, Kirk Douglas was continuously elevated to the status of an untouchable cinematic god. The man lived an incredibly long, lavish life of wealth and supreme privilege, eventually passing away in the year 2020 at the remarkable age of 103. Living out a full century in absolute luxury is a glaring injustice on its own, but the institutional complicity goes much deeper than just his longevity. The entertainment world and the American government actively chose to reward him with the highest possible honors. In 1981, the exact same year the victim tragically lost her life, the President of the United States awarded the actor the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This is the absolute highest civilian award in the country. The government pinned a prestigious medal on the chest of a man whose predatory behavior was an open secret among the Los Angeles elite. The system ignored the dark whispers circulating through the studio backlots, choosing instead to celebrate his rugged screen persona as true American heroism. The ultimate insult, however, was delivered directly by the film business itself. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is supposed to represent the pinnacle of cinematic achievement and professional integrity. In 1996, the Academy decided to grant the aging actor an honorary Oscar. Giving a Lifetime Achievement Award to a highly profitable star is standard industry practice. The truly horrifying part of this specific ceremony was the language engraved on the golden trophy and spoken from the stage. The Academy officially honored him not just as a creative pioneer, but specifically praised him as a creative and moral force in the motion picture community. Calling this man a moral force is a breathtaking display of institutional gaslighting. Studio executives essentially stood on a global stage, looked at a man known for exploiting the brutal casting couch system, and declared him a beacon of morality to the entire world. The people clapping enthusiastically in that massive auditorium were the exact same industry insiders who knew exactly how the studio system operated back in the 1950s. Dozens of those executives and producers likely knew the persistent rumors regarding the teenage starlet. Yet the wealthy crowd eagerly gave him a roaring standing ovation. This highly televised moment proves that the entertainment industry cares absolutely nothing about the actual victims of their lucrative system. The corporate business violently protects its primary financial assets above basic human decency. If a leading man generates enough box office revenue and projects a strong masculine image on camera, the establishment will literally build a public tribute to his supposed morality. The television network will broadcast his praises to millions of viewers, erasing the vulnerable women he crushed along his path to glory. This impenetrable wall of protection remained intact for his entire life. The actor died surrounded by praise, his legacy fiercely guarded by his powerful family. The pristine image was finally challenged head-on in 2021 when Lana released her explosive memoir. The book completely stripped away the decades of protective public relations spin, directly naming the beloved actor as the monster in the hotel suite. The public finally heard the ugly truth, and the media immediately turned to the powerful Douglas family for a response. When dealing with a scandal of this staggering magnitude, a wealthy dynasty immediately relies on highly paid crisis managers. The official public statement issued through his son, massive A-list actor Michael Douglas, is an absolute masterclass in deflection and narrative manipulation. The younger actor simply released a brief, carefully constructed sentence to the eager press. The official statement merely read, "May they both rest in peace." We need to deeply analyze the profound, sickening disrespect hidden inside those few carefully chosen words. Saying, "May they both rest in peace," is a highly calculated legal tactic designed to completely neutralize the explosive accusation. The statement deliberately equates the victim and perpetrator. It attempts to frame the horrific violation as just a sad historical conflict between two equal people who are now deceased. The family representative completely refused to acknowledge the severe power imbalance. There was no apology offered to the surviving sister. There was absolutely no acknowledgement of the intense trauma inflicted upon the teenage girl. The powerful family simply used a polite, dismissive phrase to shut the door on the conversation entirely. The response perfectly encapsulates how the entertainment industry handles its darkest crimes. The core strategy is to delay, deny, and wait for everyone involved to die. Once the victim is gone, the establishment can write whatever history they prefer. The powerful family expected the public to simply accept the polite dismissal and move on, completely ignoring the shattered life left in the wake of their patriarch's ambition. This dismissive attitude proves that the toxic culture protecting abusers did not end in the 1950s. The culture simply evolved, learning how to use polite public relations statements to conceal destroyed lives. The system will always prioritize the sparkling legacy of a profitable leading man over the brutal, agonizing truth of a vulnerable young girl. For more than 6 decades, this alleged incident did not exist in any official police report or court document. It survived exclusively within the shadows of the entertainment industry as a whispered rumor. Tabloids would publish the dark details without ever officially printing the names, leaving just enough clues for industry insiders to easily identify the players. Reporters reportedly knew the truth. Producers allegedly knew the details. The wealthy executives running the major studios reportedly knew exactly what was happening behind closed doors. Yet, the entire media establishment kept the identities completely out of the headlines to protect the powerful. Keeping a severely traumatic event as a mere guessing game for the general public is a profound form of institutional cruelty. It turns a reported nightmare into cheap, disposable entertainment. Imagine the psychological toll on the victim. The young star had to walk down glittering red carpets, read these thinly veiled articles in the press, and know that her peers were completely aware of her pain but chose to do absolutely nothing about it. People love to look back at the 1950s and call it the golden age of cinema. Society tends to romanticize the beautiful dresses, the classic black and white movies, and the elegant public personas of the stars. However, this story destroys that nostalgic illusion. The golden age was built on a ruthless, transactional system that treated human beings as completely disposable assets. The major studios operated exactly like industrial factories, and young, hopeful actors were simply the exploitable assets used to generate profit. Power was heavily concentrated in the hands of a few wealthy men. This extreme concentration of power meant that the truth was entirely subjective. If a powerful man reportedly committed a terrible act, his wealth and studio influence could easily rewrite reality. The public relations departments functioned as highly paid damage control teams. The system was meticulously designed to protect the financial investments of the studio, which meant protecting the leading men at all costs, regardless of their behavior. In this brutal and unforgiving environment, young newcomers were the most vulnerable targets. They entered the business with massive dreams but possessed zero leverage. They quickly learned that acting talent alone was rarely enough to secure a long career. The industry allegedly demanded a much higher, darker price for entry. When a young person realizes that their success depends entirely on staying quiet about reported abuse, they are forced into an impossible, life-altering choice. They either speak up and face immediate professional ruin, or they stay silent and carry the crushing psychological weight forever. The system relied on this exact fear to maintain control. The most devastating aspect of this specific era is how it manipulated and destroyed the family dynamic. The entertainment industry often turned parents into willing accomplices. When family members prioritize movie contracts, social status, and financial gain over the basic physical safety of their own children, the isolation becomes absolute. A victim might be able to survive a toxic workplace if they have a safe, supportive home to return to at the end of the day. But when the home itself becomes an extension of the machinery, there is nowhere left to run. The young star is trapped in a completely closed loop of exploitation. The people supposed to protect her are the very ones pushing her back into the dangerous rooms. This creates a profound, lifelong psychological prison. The victim learns very early that her value is entirely tied to her ability to generate money and please powerful people. She is completely alone in a crowded room. The most heartbreaking fact about this entire situation is the timeline of the truth. The dark reality of what allegedly happened in that hotel room remained locked away for 66 long years. The public confirmation only emerged after both the alleged attacker and the victim had passed away. Think about the heavy injustice of that reality. The powerful man reportedly lived an incredibly long, celebrated life without ever facing a single direct question from law enforcement regarding this specific claim. He died an untouchable legend, surrounded by awards and global admiration. The lack of legal accountability highlights a deeply flawed justice system that favored wealth and public image over the protection of vulnerable minors. The victim carried the unhealed trauma to her grave, never getting the chance to see her truth publicly validated or her alleged abuser held accountable in a court of law. The enforced silence outlived the actual people involved. It proves that the classic studio system was incredibly efficient at burying its darkest secrets alongside its stars. This case is not just a tragic historical footnote. It is a glaring warning about the nature of unchecked power and the danger of unchecked ambition. It forces audiences to question the actual human cost of the entertainment we eagerly consume. The movies from that era might look glamorous on a television screen, but the reality behind the camera was often cold, calculated, and incredibly ruthless. The system demanded total silence, and it paid for that silence with fame and fortune. But as we have clearly seen, no amount of money, no level of fame, and no prestigious awards can ever erase the profound damage inflicted on the people caught inside the machine. When the director yells "cut," the cameras stop rolling, but the trauma for these actresses does not. What we have just seen is proof of a toxic power dynamic, where art becomes a shield for abuse and silence is bought with fame. It is time for the truth to be heard. What are your thoughts on this dark reality? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to Actor Secrets as we continue to expose the dark side of Hollywood. Thanks for watching.